In April 2024, Argentina's economy was in freefall. Inflation soared to a staggering 292%, the highest in over 3 decades. Millions of Argentines were plunged into poverty, 53% of Argentina's population struggling to make ends meet. The country's debt had ballooned to $283 billion in September 2024, and the peso was in freefall. Argentina's economic crisis was not just a matter of numbers. The human toll was devastating. Food insecurity affected millions, with soup kitchens reporting a surge in demand. Retail sales has decreased year over year up to 2024, while workers' purchasing power decreased by 15% at the end of 2023. The middle class, once the backbone of Argentine society, was rapidly shrinking. Small businesses, unable to cope with hyperinflation and reduced consumer spending, were closing their doors at an alarming rate. Enter Javier Milei, a libertarian economist with wild hair and even wilder ideas. Brandishing a chainsaw on the campaign trail, he promised to slash government spending and dollarize the economy. His radical approach resonated with a population desperate for change, propelling him to the presidency in a stunning upset. Milei's victory was a political earthquake. He secured 55.7% of the vote in the runoff election, defeating Sergio Massa, the candidate of the long-dominant Peronist movement. This marked the widest margin in a presidential election since Argentina's return to democracy in 1983. Milei's rise to power came at a critical juncture in Argentina's economic history. The country had been grappling with chronic economic instability for decades, cycling through periods of high inflation, currency devaluations, and debt defaults. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated these long-standing issues, pushing the economy to the brink. As a former television pundit, Milei capitalized on widespread discontent with traditional politics. His campaign, marked by fiery rhetoric and unconventional tactics, struck a chord with the voters disillusioned by years of economic mismanagement. Milei's promise to dynamite the central bank and slash the size of government resonated with the population weary of bureaucratic inefficiency and corruption. But can Milei's shock therapy cure Argentina's economic ills? Or will his drastic measures push the country over the edge? Milei's most controversial proposal is to abandon the peso and adopt the US dollar as Argentina's official currency. It's a bold move that could stabilize the economy, or send it into a tailspin. Dollarization isn't a new concept. Ecuador took the plunge in 2000, facing a similar economic crisis. The results? Inflation plummeted from over 96% to just 38% within a year, and by 2003, it reached the single-digit goal of 8%. Panama, which has used the US dollar for over a century, has enjoyed relative economic stability and low inflation rates. But dollarization comes with significant risks. By adopting the dollar, Argentina would surrender control over its monetary policy to the US Federal Reserve. This means losing the ability to adjust interest rates or print money in response to economic shocks. Critics argue that dollarization could exacerbate income inequality and make Argentina less competitive in global markets. Without the ability to devalue its currency, the country might struggle to boost exports or attract foreign investment. Moreover, the transition to dollarization could be chaotic. In Ecuador, the process led to bank runs and social unrest. Argentina, with its larger and more complex economy, could face even greater challenges. While dollarization remains a controversial proposal, Milei has wasted no time in wielding his metaphorical chainsaw against public spending. Within weeks of taking office, Milei implemented a series of shock measures. He slashed energy and transportation subsidies, laid off tens of thousands of government workers, and froze public infrastructure projects. The goal? To eliminate Argentina's chronic fiscal deficit and curb runaway inflation. Milei's approach to public spending cuts has been more drastic and wide-ranging than initially outlined. He eliminated several government ministries, including those for women, gender and diversity, science and technology, and culture, consolidating their functions into other departments or eliminating them entirely. He implemented a hiring freeze across all government agencies and initiated a comprehensive review of public sector employment with the goal of identifying and eliminating unnecessary positions. The results have been swift and dramatic. Monthly inflation plummeted from 25% in December 2023 to just 2.4% in November 2024, the lowest level in 3 years. Argentina achieved its first budget surplus in 12 years, and the closely watched gap between the black market dollar and the official rate has shrunk significantly. But these gains have come at a steep cost. Unemployment has climbed from 5.7% Q4 2023 to 7.7% Q1 2024. Economic activity has declined, and poverty has surged to a two-decade high. An estimated 200,000 construction workers lost their jobs as public works projects ground to a halt. Retirees have been hit particularly hard. Some of the government's biggest savings came from holding down the real value of pensions. The average minimum monthly pension is now just $320, barely a third of $900 that a household requires to survive. Milei supporters argue that this short-term pain is necessary for long-term gain. They point to the rapid decline in inflation and the renewed interest from foreign investors as signs that the strategy is working. Critics, however, warn that the austerity measures could push Argentina into a deep recession. They argue that cutting public spending during an economic crisis could create a vicious cycle, further depressing economic activity and tax revenues. In June 2024, Milei achieved a significant political victory when the Senate narrowly approved a slimmed-down version of his omnibus bill. This legislation grants the president broad executive powers and paves the way for opening up Argentina's closed economy. The bill includes provisions to slash regulations, give private firms greater discretion in hiring and firing workers, and make deep cuts in education funding. It also offers tax breaks and incentives for foreign investment in the domestic economy. While the bill didn't contain everything Milei had initially proposed, its passage represents a radical departure for Argentina's state-centric economy. It's a testament to Milei's ability to navigate the complex political landscape despite being a political outsider. As Milei marks his first year in office, the economic picture remains mixed. While there are signs of improvement in some areas, the country is grappling with a severe recession. However, there are some positive signs emerging. The Argentinian stock market has surged 172% in 2024. Becoming the best-performing index globally. This suggests that investors are optimistic about the long-term prospects of Milei's reforms, despite the short-term pain. Argentina's GDP contracted by 3.5% in 2024, primarily due to the stabilization plan that includes realigning relative prices and eliminating fiscal and external imbalances. Between January and September 2024, Argentina ran a fiscal surplus for the first time in many years. This achievement is particularly noteworthy given the country's history of chronic deficits. The country risk has fallen from 2,100 points in January to 1,280 in October 2024. However, it remains one of the highest in the region. The adjustment has shifted the trade balance to a surplus, allowing Argentina to build up its foreign exchange reserves. Milei's austerity measures have had profound social consequences, affecting various sectors of Argentine society. The education sector has been particularly hard hit, with universities struggling to cover basic operational costs. Some institutions have been forced to turn off lights and air conditioning due to budget freezes. The education budget was cut by 52% in real terms, leading to nationwide protests from students and faculty. In the cultural sphere, the downgrading of the Culture Ministry, closure of the National Theater Institute, and shuttering of a state-funded news agency have raised concerns about the long-term impact on Argentina's rich cultural heritage. Scientific research has also suffered, with funding cut by 33%. This reduction has sparked fears of a potential brain drain as researchers contemplate leaving the country, potentially impacting Argentina's long-term innovation capabilities. The industrial sector has not been spared, with production coming down in 2024, marking 18 consecutive months of contraction. However, in late 2024, there was a slight improvement from previous months. As Argentina stands at this economic crossroads, the path forward is fraught with both challenges and opportunities. The International Monetary Fund projects that Argentina's economy will grow by 5% in 2025, driven by improved economic conditions, investments in the energy sector, and normalization of agricultural production. Milei's administration aimed to bring inflation down to 120% by the end of 2024, a significant reduction from the peak in 2023. As of December 2024, the annual inflation rate stood at 118%, showing significant progress by Milei, and his reforms have been successful. However, achieving this target while maintaining social stability remains a significant challenge. When Javier Milei assumed the presidency in December 2023, he inherited a staggering debt burden. Argentina's public debt had reached alarming levels, with the debt-to-GDP ratio standing at 155% in 2023. Not sure if you knew, No other country owes IMF more money than Argentina, with its total outstanding debt at $43 billion, almost 3 times the amount of IMF's second-largest debtor, Egypt, at $15 billion. The country has had a long and troubled relationship with the IMF, with a history of equally spectacular fallouts and bailouts. This high level of indebtedness was a result of years of fiscal mismanagement and economic instability. While foreign investors have expressed excitement about Milei's reforms, they remain cautious, still haunted by Argentina's 2001 crisis, which resulted in the largest foreign debt default in modern history. As Milei enters his second year in office, he faces the delicate task of maintaining the momentum of his reforms while addressing the social costs of his austerity measures. Despite the painful consequences of his policies, Milei has managed to maintain significant popular support. A recent poll shows that 43% of Argentines approve of his performance. However, as the bar for success gets higher, sustaining this support will be crucial for the continued implementation of his reform agenda. Only time will tell if Milei's chainsaw approach will cut through Argentina's deep-rooted economic woes or leave lasting scars on its social fabric.